It's critical to see what a fascist America looks like before it's too late. Yesterday, President Biden gave a national primetime speech. As far as I can tell, it was carried by all the networks. I hope you caught it. If you did, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. My takeaway from it was that he was sounding the alarm bell. He was saying fascism is here. Fascism is at our doorstep. He didn't use that word, to the best of my knowledge, but I don't know how you could define it as anything other than that. And I think it's really important that we talk about this. We have seen fascism in the United States. We saw it between 1830 and 1860 in the southern states, where a group of oligarchs took over the South. Even if you were white, if you opposed those oligarchs, you could get lynched, and many were, white people as well as obviously black people. You could get, tortured. The elections were rigged. Political violence was a feature, not a bug, of Confederate politics. And just like the old Confederacy, if these neo-fascists take over, they will, they'll do it first on a state-by-state basis. It's already starting to happen. You look at DeSantis in Florida and Abbott in Texas. So then, you're basically reinventing the Confederacy, and then they will reach out to take over the government of the United States. And that will happen in 2 years, in 2024, via a Trump presidency or a DeSantis, we'll see. But that's how it plays out. So what would America look like when it becomes fascist? What does this mean? Well, the first and most essential thing to understand about fascism is that it is always about the leader, capital T, capital L, the leader. There's always a strongman leader in a fascist state. It's the essence of a fascist state. And the leader is never wrong. Now, for most Americans, and this is the really dangerous part of fascism, people tend to think, you say fascism and people think of, average people huddling in their doorsteps as jackbooted thugs march goose-stepping down the street in front of them. That's not fascism. I mean, that is fascism, but that's not how it typically presents itself. For most Americans, the white majority in America, unless you are politically active, unless you are speaking out, you probably won't notice that big a difference. Hey, your job is still there. The disco. I'm dating myself. The clubs are still there. The restaurants are still there. The movies are still playing in the theaters. You can still vote. Everything looks normal. Unless you speak out. If you speak out against the leader, then, like the COVID statistician found out down in Florida when she spoke out against DeSantis, you lose your job. If you speak out against the leader, even a job that's not a political job, you lose your job because your employer does not want to have people who are opposing the regime working for them. If you're a pastor and you don't speak well of the leader, you could lose your congregation. You could lose your position. If you're a newscaster or a talk show host and you don't speak well of the leader, you'll be replaced by somebody who will. The media all gets, it doesn't instantly turn poisonous overnight. It does one of two things. Like in Russia, it is all acquired by the federal government or the state governments, and it becomes basically a mouthpiece for the leader. Or like in Hungary, virtually all of the media in Hungary is now owned by a handful of billionaires who are friends of Viktor Orban's. What happens in fascism is that the leader creates an oligarchy around himself that supports him. He supports the oligarchs. He gives them juicy government contracts and helps them, buy companies for a song because he puts those companies under pressure. And then they, in turn, use their media platforms to support him. And the media is the first place where fascism really shows up once it takes over. You start noticing that the news is changing. Just subtly, but it's changing. And, if you think it's extreme to say that in a fascist state, just average citizens, your advancement, your economic success, your personal success, your political security is destroyed if you don't support the leader, if you think that sounds extreme, just look at today's Republican Party. This is the prototype for how these MAGA Republicans will reinvent the United States if they gain power. Look at what happened to the 10 Republicans who said, yeah, we should impeach Trump for trying to overthrow the government on January 6th. They're all out. Toast. Liz Cheney spoke out against him, and boom, Trump supports his primary challenger. I mean, I could go through the list. I don't need to, but we're already seeing this. When Trump was president, we were seeing this. Psychologist Dr. Bandy Lee was fired from Yale University for tweeting that Trump was mentally ill. School teacher Leah Kenyon was fired from her job for saying, quote, I hate Donald Trump. He's a sexual predator, a literal moron. She just said that on social media and was fired from her school teaching job. Julie Brisker, remember the woman who flipped off the Trump motorcade from her bicycle? She was fired from her job with the government contractor Akimov for giving Trump the finger. Rebecca Jones was fired by DeSantis for telling the truth about covering up Florida COVID statistics. Florida's Orange County Health Director, Dr. Paul Pino, was removed for encouraging his staff to get vaccinated. When companies defy the leader, they get brutally punished, as DeSantis is doing right now to Disney and the Tampa Bay Rays. Soon, companies just don't even try to stand up to the leader, including the media companies. And now DeSantis has just signed legislation giving him the authority to hold accountable college professors. The headline over at Salon says it all. DeSantis signs bill requiring Florida students, professors to register political beliefs with state. Universities may lose funding if staff and students' beliefs do not satisfy Florida's GOP-run legislature. You end up doing things on the leader's behalf, whether you're supporting his party, working at a private corporation, or engaged in the nonprofit sector, like teaching at a university or a medical center. And defying or challenging the leader brings punishment. Supporting the leader is the path to career advancement. Everything is done for the leader because the leader is the state. The state and the leader have become one. And if you challenge the leader, you're challenging the state, and that's treason. As Marjorie Taylor Greene said of Speaker Nancy Pelosi, quote, she took an oath to protect American citizens and uphold our laws, and she gives aid and comfort to our enemies who illegally invade our land. That's what treason is. And by our law, representatives and senators can be kicked out and no longer serve in our government, and it's a crime punishable by death. End of quote from Marjorie Taylor Greene about Nancy Pelosi. Whatever the leader says becomes the law. It's called rule by decree. Trump was apparently just an hour away from this. Mike Flynn and Mike Lindell in his office begging him to declare martial law and shut down the country and suspend the Constitution. And apparently the only reason he didn't do it is because the senior leadership of the Justice Department threatened him. But next time around, he won't have senior leadership in the Justice Department that will stand up for democracy. They'll just say, yes, leader. Whatever you say, leader. We'll be glad to do it, sir. There will still be the trappings of democracy in a fascist America. The House and Senate will still be there. The state houses and governors, the bureaucracies and the political systems will remain intact. Everything looks normal on the surface. But when you peel off that top layer, you discover that all those people, whether elected or bureaucrats, are only serving one principle and one person, and that is the leader. Governors, secretaries of state, United States senators, members of the U.S. House, state representatives, even a part-time guy working in a poll place in Michigan could get a call at any time from the leader demanding that he do something for them, whether it's legal or not. And in fact, Trump called people in every single one of those categories, asking them to overturn the 2020 election. We've already been this close to having complete fascism here in the United States. There will still be opposition parties and political candidates in the fascist Republican America. They just won't have any power. Just like in Hungary, just like in Russia. Yes, you may run against me, says Putin, but only if you don't attack me too vigorously. If you do, you go off to the gulag in Siberia. And then the leader starts his own private military, like Trump started to do with the Border Patrol. He sent 747 actually, federal officers here to Portland. They tore off their ID and went around and beat up protesters to start a riot. This is what fascists do.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
You've heard me read from Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free, many times. I've got quotes in my article today. I won't hit you with them again, but you get the point. So how do you think it's going to play out in your state?